To just watch him, yes.
Joanne used to say to me, because I always had in the back of my mind when I'm painting is I want to sell these things. I'm not doing it just for fun, you know. So I always made sure that what I was doing was going to sell eventually, or try to sell.
Yeah.
So Joanne used to say to me, "Why don't you paint something that's not going to sell? Paint something that you know."
I like
paint
things
something that no one will buy.
That's right. Then it's the best.
Yeah, then she loves it. Yeah, she falls in love with everything.
Yeah.
I don't paint for public, for any selling. But
So then we move on to...
we're back in Vancouver.
We're back in Vancouver.
Yeah.
And
then I have a hernia operation.
She has to have a hernia.
Just a little one, and that's no big
We
deal.
already had the tickets for Hawaii.
Hold on. So let's go backwards a bit, because when had you decided to go to Hawaii? What was that all about?
It was before she got pregnant. I said to her, "How about for the next baby? Why don't we plan on going to Hawaii?" And she said,
Paul said, another exotic
place.
How about Hawaii?
They're exotic, but they're also great places where there's rich people and good weather, and
you can
I'd
sell.
be able to get out and sell, no problem, you know.
Yeah.
It's no point going to sort of someplace in Russia where the weather's bad.
Well, unless I could do shows.
Yeah, maybe.
Moscow.
Maybe we never did try that. But...
So that was decided, and then...
So that was decided, yeah.
Yeah.
So Joanne had already bought the tickets when she found out she had a hernia. And so she quickly had this operation.
They said best to do it in case later it got bigger, and then it would, involve problems with pregnancy.
And then about a week after the operation, we left for Hawaii. Doctor said she was fine, stitches came out, and off we went. And we landed up in Waikiki, and as we get off the plane, the heat, oh my God.
And Tala,
it's
of
like
course.
walking into an oven, you know.
Tala's a year and a half.
And so we ended up, first thing we do is we have to look for a car and an apartment. And,
you first, now I recall that we used to actually buy newspapers as well.
The only way to find advertising for apartments.
Or you get
cars.
the telephone book,
yeah.
right?
Everything was in the car. Everything was in the ads in the papers,
Yeah.
And also for art equipment.
In some ways, it was easier than today. It seemed easy. We never seemed to have any problem finding places.
Okay.
Well, we look only in one location, right? Like half a block back from the beach, which, again, we got the most...
beautiful place,
perfect place.
1 block from the beach, 1 block from the area by the zoo.
From the zoo.
Just perfect.
Everything.
And a little away from the wild touristy area, which was completely mad every night. So
you can walk down to
great
it.
Location.
It's like a 10-minute walk
just
into
less
it.
than 10 minutes to get into it, but it's just... Still, it was kind of like a bit outside of the main, drag kind of thing,
We always, the first area we chose, we loved, and the same in Cannes. We always went back to Cannes. It was always, might have been over a block, but it was always roughly same area, like within
So then every
minutes.
morning we found a car. It was
What did you get your first?
Oh God, that was a Chrysler New Yorker, massive big car. I loved it. The trouble was though, it wasn't very healthy.
Right.
It had a problem overheating, which I couldn't solve. So I ended up taking it back to the guy and picking up a smaller car, a Granada, Ford Granada, and that one was good shape and perfect, roughly the same price. And so we had that for the whole time we were in Hawaii, which was great.
Okay.
And, we always said, people say Hawaii is a paradise. And we always says, it is and it was. It's just that you have that perfect temperature all year. The water is crazy. We swam in the morning and the evening.
Midnight you could go anywhere.
Yeah, you can go anytime.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, even recently, we go at 7 in the morning. I mean,
we were in the water before the sun came up.
Well, roughly, but it's.
So we used to go there with Tala every morning. We go for our breakfast to a little place.
We go out at 7.
We go out at 7, have our breakfast in the water by 8 o'clock.
She's very good. She's a year and a half then.
Oh, she was great.
We'd have either an orange, which she'd peel.
I'd take her into the deep water.
Yeah.
She'd hold my hair at the back, and I'd swim, and she'd be like, she'd never let go. She'd hold on to my hair, and I'd swim out to where the waves were, and we'd surf in, or we'd go lie on the breakwater on the rock together. And when a wave came, it would wash us off. She loved it. She wasn't afraid of anything. Well, she's not afraid of anything now either.
Yeah,
she's
it's your character. You're born with it.
I think she's always been that way. She's always been wide-eyed, and anything you wanted to experiment with her, she'd be game,
Yeah, but it's also true that you dropped her in at the deep end at the beginning, and she
that's true.
She was educated that way anyway, so she didn't have a choice.
She couldn't swim, but she still wasn't afraid. Can you imagine? We'd wash off.
Well, she's with Daddy.
We'd wash off this rock, and I'd have to find her. She'd go under the
water.
Oh,
I don't know.
She would. She'd
he's
go under
exaggerating
the water. But I just lift her up.
As if.
But she let go of me. Yeah, she'd go under a little bit. Not for long. And then, she wasn't afraid once.
This was the swimming. This is the seawater, of course, but this was sort of a made.
It was a protected area.
Protected,
but the waves did come in at one part, and then
they came over.
They came over the top of this like breakwater.
And with the zoo, of course, I used to go. Yeah, in the afternoons often. I guess I must have had a seasonal ticket. With Tala, we'd walk around the zoo and say, I was always speaking to her in Spanish, Yeah, we went all the time to the
Now, why
zoo.
did you go to the zoo? I think you met somebody. Is that how it happened?
Oh, no, sorry, yes.
Yeah.
I went out the first couple of days there. I got we got art equipment. Of course, we had to find an art place to buy my equipment. And then I went out and started selling right on the promenade, right 1 block away from where we lived.
And you were allowed to? That was all... Did you have to have a permit and stuff? Or?
Well, I already had a permit from the last time we were in Hawaii.
Oh, yeah.
That was 10 years
But I didn't think we needed it. Just if I'm painting in public,
it's assumed.
They wouldn't stop you.
Yeah.
If I had all my works out for sale, they might. But I didn't have a lot out.
But things have changed. I don't know about today.
I have no idea.
But years ago, they were.
So this guy comes up after I'd been there for a couple of hours painting, and he said, "Wow," he said, "I like your work. Why don't you come and join us artists down at the zoo fence," which was a big fence at the side of the zoo, where all the local artists were selling their works.
Right.
So I thought, okay, well, I'll give that a whirl, I'll try that. And that was only once a week, Sunday.
Yeah, you could only do one day.
You could only do 1 day a week there.
But then Ward Warehouse, somebody came by and said, hey, come to the Ward Warehouse.
So then I was doing...
Twice a week.
I was doing twice a week out at the shopping mall. I was doing the park.
But that's where you got the prince that bought the Northwest Heritage.
That's right, in Ward Warehouse. I was there for one Wednesday, and I was set up with all my works. And this guy comes over and says, the prince would like to buy a painting. I said, who? A prince?
No photos, of course.
And I looked over, and there was this massive big limousine.
Oh.
And this guy in the back with he had sort of a turban on his head. And he only looked about 15. And the guy says, the prince would like to buy this painting. One of my big paintings of the native faces.
Okay.
And I said, okay, great. So I gave I think it wasn't much. It was about $400. And I said, I think it was $450. I said, this is $450, He said, no problem. So he went away, came back and gave me $500 bills and said, keep the change. So I thought, that's nice. Anyway, he sold it to a prince. And
brilliant.
They took the paintings, flew it in the back of the
limousine.
It's a shame
he's not on my email list.
I don't know who he was. No name, nothing.
Yeah. Well, it's like from all those years, we have, no emails, nothing.
So there we were. I was doing a lot of days a week now. I was out in the front some days. I was at World Warehouse. I was in the zoo.
Yeah, you were very busy.
And Joanne was organising shows.
Oh, yeah, we did.
We did the shows at the Air Force Base.
2 Air Force bases.
Here we go again, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, they were great, of course.
Yeah.
And we also did the Halicoa. What was that? That was
we did the City Hall show, which was just a one-man show.
We were busy as anything there.
Yeah, there's always...
The great thing is the weather allows you to be out every single day selling. It's not like some places like
that's right,
Vancouver. My God, we're lucky if we get 2 days a week. Good. Yeah.
Actually, those were the... Paul, we made... And these are people that saw him on the promenade. So then we were at the Village Gallery in Maui.
That's right.
We were at the Showcase Gallery in Kona, the Big Island.
Right.
And then you also had the mural, the rodeo club.
I did a mural, that's right, for the rodeo.
And
club.
then it was the Financial Plaza and the Kahala
non-stop.
art exhibit, and then the Vox Populi exhibition, City Hall.
Yeah.
And then the U.S., it was Fort de Russie, and it was the other...
Gee, when did I get a day off? That sounds like
Paul,
every morning. She's reeling off all these things.
Every morning and evening.
Joanne was like my secretary, keeping me aware of all the jobs I had to do.
Well, our kids were always slept well because... first of all, tell it, swimming in the morning.
Shattered.
We swim. Then at 6 or something, we swam again, and then we walked down the promenade. Yeah. I mean, she slept extremely well. Also,
stopped and had a drink.
Hot. Yeah, we'd always have our drink. It was very hot out. So,
to those in North America, Hawaii is quite familiar, but to most people in Europe, it's a bit of a not a mystery, but we're not that educated about it. It's U.S. soil these days, but it's and it's in the middle of absolutely nowhere. I mean, it's as far from anything as it can be.
Pacific,
and it's several islands, and presumably Honolulu is the sort of main, the
Waikiki,
busiest.
Honolulu is Oahu. That's on the island of Oahu.
Well, Columbus was he.
Then there's Maui,
yeah,
which is a very touristy type, rich little island, but it doesn't have
small.
Yeah, it's small. Yeah. It doesn't have the commercial aspect of Waikiki.
No,
right.
And as Joanne's father used to say to us, if the King Kamehameha built his palace in Waikiki, he must have done it for a reason.
Yeah, and that's the Pink Hotel now.
Oh, the best beaches altogether.
Yeah, the Royal
really?
Hawaiian.
Oh, yeah.
Right, and that's only like a 10-minute walk from always where we
Sure,
were.
we used to go there for a drink.
Because the beaches are really special.
Yeah.
Sure, if you don't like too many people, but for us, it's important for selling.
And you travel around a bit and go to different islands, as you've just mentioned. So,
we went to a couple of the islands. We also went all around the island a few times. It's not that big. It's only about 50, 60 miles long. So you can do a whole island trip around the island in one day, no problem.
Right, and with the history, of course, it's always fascinating. I mean, thousands of years ago, they say the Polynesians came, didn't they? And
First inhabitants were the Polynesians, and then
the Samoans.
The Brits got there with Captain Cook.
Yeah.
He was the first
and they brought in a lot of disease, unfortunately.
Yeah, right.
There was
course.
Diseases, of course,
which was smallpox, right? That seemed to be everywhere.
Then the
Japanese.
There's lots of Japanese on the island.
And they brought them in when the Americans came for the plantations. They brought in even more, of the Japanese as well for working.
So that brings us to talk about the natives of Hawaii, and that became a subject at some point, I imagine.
Yeah, when I was painting on the promenade, even the first week or so, I bumped into this Hawaiian Samoan guy called Fred.
Fred.
And he was about 350, 400 pounds. Massive, big, long white beard, long white hair.
Yeah,
he was certainly
impressive.
a character. I don't know whether you've seen a photograph of him from Tala, but unbelievable character. And he used to come and sit next to me when I was painting. So I started painting him, of course. He's the perfect subject matter.
Yeah.
And people would come up and see and ask if they could take a photograph. And he would say, "Cost you $1."
or half a case of beer.
Or a six-pack of beer. So some of them would come across with beer and some would give him $1, and he was making as much money as me.
Was he was well known, was he?
Yes, he was a character on the beach.
An icon of
he was one of the, like an icon there,
Ah, okay.
And he literally would make, I think he only made about $300 or $400 a month from the government.
Yeah.
And he'd spend it in the first couple of weeks, and then the next he'd sleep on the beaches. He wouldn't, he'd sleep right out there.
Like to spend and
shower
have fun
off on the beach every morning. We'd see him showering off. Yeah. And then he'd be there and sitting around talking to people all day long,
from subject matter, of course, you had the tiki gods, the Hawaiian dancers, the Hawaiian men. Yeah. So it became, again, a very important subject.
In a sense, it was a bit like the native West Coast natives.
Yeah.
I had the tiki gods instead of totem poles, and I had, of course, their faces instead of the West Coast faces. So it worked out quite a similar idea. I could